Year 7, the Monday lesson. A few last minute changes there. We're going to look at Act 2, Scene 1, where Macbeth stalks the king with the intention of assassinating him. Before we jump into that scene, we need to review last lesson where we discussed iambic pentameter to remember what that means. Pause the video if you need more time. Well, iambic pentameter is, in very basic terms, 5 beats per line, and it is or 5 pairs of stressed and unstressed syllables, unstressed then stressed syllables. For example, water would be 1 pair. It's the language of the aristocratic, it's the language of the noble, it's the language of the educated characters in Shakespeare. So bearing that in mind, would you expect Lady Macbeth to use iambic pentameter or prose? Have a quick think. Well, she's a lady, she's aristocratic and noble, and therefore she usually is seen to be using iambic pentameter, that structured way of laying out the lines in 5 beats. Lower class characters use prose. Today, you need to know what hallucination means. It's a seeing or hearing something that isn't there. In other words, a vision or dreamlike image. And we arrive at the word from hallucinatus, means to wander in the mind. Lucid means clear. Hallucinatus means to remove from the clear. So, let's go down to the new question. What hallucinations might Macbeth be having right now? Think about his goals, his recent past. What might he be hallucinating? Pause the video if you need more time. You might think witches, weapons, swords, fighting, crown. And looking back at iambic pentameter, which of these is another way of describing iambic pentameter? Pop verse, or blank verse, or Shakespearean prose? Which of those 3 is another way of saying iambic pentameter? Pause to think. The answer is blank verse. You'll notice that a lot of Shakespearean lines, in fact most of them, start with the capital letters, even though it's the same sentence continuing over to the second line. That's why it's called verse. Verses of a song, lines of a song, or lines of a poem usually start with a capital. And if the lines rhyme, it's called rhyming verse in Shakespeare, and it's usually characters who've been very decisive, who've made up their mind, who use rhyming verse, or if they're extremely educated and extremely noble or regal, they'll use rhyming verse. Today we're going to explore Macbeth's language and motivations. We'll understand scene 1 in this second act. We're going to draw something, and we're going to understand, analyse Macbeth's language choices. You're going to explode a quotation. So I'm going to give you the questions now so you know what to look out for as we progress through the lesson. So the first thing to do is to write a summary of the play so far. This is so your memory, you can help your memory by just remembering what's happened ever since Act 1, Scene 1. If you've forgotten what's happened since that stage, have a look at the video summaries on YouTube. And then we'd like you to find one quotation from what's called the hallucination scene coming up. You're to explode that quotation, translate it into English, modern English, and then simply draw an image representing it. So, let's set the scene. At the beginning of this scene, we're going to start from about a page in. Banquo and his son Fleance are talking, and then Macbeth arrives. Remember that Banquo has been told that his son and his son's sons and his son's son's sons are going to become kings of Scotland. Nothing to do with Macbeth's bloodline. Once Fleance, Banquo's son, leaves, Macbeth speaks to Banquo. Banquo confesses to Macbeth he's been having bad dreams about the encounter with witches, and Macbeth says that he'd like a word with Banquo to talk about that business later on. And then Macbeth speaks to his servant, and the servant disappears, and he takes a dagger and heads to King Duncan's bedchamber. So, to understand this soliloquy, you'll need to know that palpable means can be touched, because he wonders whether the dagger he sees is a vision or whether it's a real dagger. Then he says that the real dagger is leading him, or it marshals him towards its destination. And the vision of the dagger that Macbeth sees has blood splotches or dudgeon gouts. He speaks about the bloody business which informs thus to my eyes. So he says it's the bloody business means it's the murder, or the talk of the gruesomeness of the assassination is making him believe he can see a knife. Hecate is a Greek goddess of the moon, ghost, and conjuring, basically a divine witch, and she has familiars. She has familiars including a black dog and a polecat, so very witchly sort of character. Macbeth later refers to Tarquin. He says that he feels like Tarquin, the Roman prince. Now, this is somebody who snuck into a Roman wife's bedchamber and attacked her, actually. So Macbeth compares himself to Tarquin and to Hecate, people who do bad deeds at night. And then he turns to the pavement and says, and wishes that they wouldn't echo his footsteps, because it's as if the footsteps are gossiping of his bad acts, his malicious acts, malevolent acts. And then he says he's been talking too much. He's just been threatening rather than doing. I threat too much, which cools the act, cools the heat of deeds, which means he's delaying so much that action is being, his desire for action is cooling. And then he's asked his servant to tell Lady Macbeth to ring a bell when his drink is ready, and he refers to the bell later on as a knell. A knell is a bell rung at a funeral or to announce a death. Now, this is a quick reminder of that word equivocation. Go bid thy mistress when my drink is ready to ring a bell, then go to bed, servant. Now, when my drink is ready, it presents Macbeth as some sort of vampirical character, doesn't it? It's nighttime. Nighttime's when bad things happen. He wants to drink blood. So when my drink is ready, it's really when Macbeth could be saying it's when it's time to attack Duncan. Yesterday, I think, I made a video summary. Have a quick look. I'll see you on the other side with your instructions for the rest of the lesson.
Students, welcome back to the Heath. Last time we met Macbeth, he had agreed to take part in Lady Macbeth's plan to execute the king. When we find him this evening, not on this bright day, I hope technology is going to allow us to turn day into night. When we meet him, he's going to be hesitating, hallucinating, but finally resolved to murdering the king using the knives that Lady Macbeth handed him, having taken them from the sleeping guards.
Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle towards my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Are thou not, fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat-oppressed brain? I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which now I draw. Thou marshalst me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made for fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest. I see thee still, and on thy blade dudgeoned gouts of blood, which was not so before. There's no such thing. It's the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now, o'er the one half-world, nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offering, withered murder, alarmed by his sentinel the wolf, whose howls his watch thus, with his stealthy pace, while Tarquin's ravishing strides towards his design moves like a ghost. Thou sure and firm-set earth, hear not my steps, which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate at my whereabout, and take the present horror from the time, which now suits with it. Whilst I threat he lives, words to the heat of deeds too cold breath gives. I go, and it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell.
So, your instructions are to take the script we've given you. I'm going to try and jump to a different program. Yes, I think that's it. So you have this sheet. I have highlighted 2 lines. You need to highlight some other line, and then you copy this into your book and explode the quotation. So we have, is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand. So my class, you have exploded these quotations. When we looked at Chaucer, you remember the Canterbury Tales, what we did with the miller, the wife of Bath. We wrote the quotation out, and we drew these lines. We drew lines to follow our thoughts, record our thoughts about each word. So dagger is a noun. Think about a dagger: murder, death, sharp, violence, something like that. Towards is a preposition because it talks about place, and it suggests that if the panel's turning towards me or Macbeth, he's feeling responsible. The question towards my hand suggests Macbeth isn't quite ready, he's uncertain, doubtful. The term subject terminology we put at the bottom usually. So now please pick one short phrase from the speech I just showed you, and you've been sent, and explode. And you've seen these 2 questions already. First of all, we need you to summarize the play so far. Then you choose a couple of lines from the hallucination scene, translate it into modern English, explode it, and draw an image representing the quote. I suppose I would have drawn a dagger from the quote I've chosen. See you on Wednesday.